Session. Distinguished participants, I welcome you to the third in the series of global conversation on digital literacy in Africa. This is an initiative of the TED Fund, and it's driven through its committee on digital literacy, productivity, and emerging skills. The committee kicked off this conversation, the global conversation, with the first webinar in the series on the 4th of October 2023. And we had the chairman of the committee, Professor Emeritus Olugbemiro Jegede. He set the tone for the development of a roadmap for digital literacy and emerging skills in the Nigerian tertiary institution and, of course, Africa. Professor Olugbemiro is one of Africa's most remarkable citizens, so you can imagine he wouldn't be speaking for Nigeria alone, but for Africa in general. And then continuing the conversation, on Thursday, the 7th of December, 2023, we had contributing to this global discourse, a business executive, an entrepreneur, and community leader who serves as the chairman of the Global Digital Literacy Council of the United States, Nicholas Herber, facilitate the session on digital literacy as a starting point in bridging the gap in the digital skills gap. So today, in our usual culture of excellence, we shall continue this conversation. As seen on the screen, I have displayed the agenda. We continue the global discussion on digital literacy in Africa, and we're bringing another remarkable expert as our keynote speaker to speak on the topic of the validation of non-traditional learning experience. This webinar series on digital conversation has continued to generate a lot of interest. Each session, we have over 500 attendees who have registered to indicate their intention. It is my pleasure, therefore, to call this webinar to order as I've introduced the session. We're proudly sponsored by the TED Fund, and this webinar is hosted by our own Executive Secretary, Architect Soule St. Echono, and he is joined by his fellow Executive Secretaries, the ES of the National Board for Technical Education, the Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission, and the Executive Secretary of the National Commission for Colleges of Education. As usual, it's going to be an excellent one with the exchange of ideas by all the brilliant minds that we have in attendance. I count on the tech people to kindly assist in admitting more people in to the webinar. I see it flashing across my screen, but I may not be able to multitask well enough to admit people. On that note, I want to invite our own Executive Secretary, Architect Soule St. Echono, to warmly welcome our distinguished participants to the third in the series of webinars on the digital literacy skills, emerging skills and productivity in Africa. Yes, sir. Chairman, are you able to reach the ES, or are you representing him at today's webinar? Professor Jagede?
The ES is here. Can you kindly unmute me? Okay, I think I've done that now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We warmly welcome you, sir. Yes, sir. We hear you clearly. We warmly welcome.
A very good afternoon to you all, our very distinguished guests, my esteemed colleagues, all the educators and participants from both Nigeria and across the continent, and indeed my colleague, executive secretaries, as well as other stakeholders in the education family. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to the third TED Fund webinar, our global conversation on digital literacy in Africa. And I believe that your presence here today signifies our common commitment to advancing education in Nigeria, and indeed on the continent. Today's gathering marks yet another crucial step in our collective journey towards equipping our institutions and individuals with the tools and knowledge they need to thrive in a rapidly evolving digital landscape. Building upon the insightful discussions and recommendations from our previous webinars alluded to earlier, we explored deeper into one critical aspect, which is the validation of non-traditional learning experience to be delivered by an erudite and esteemed scholar, Thomas Soule, very shortly. Today's webinar also holds particular significance as we delve into this complex but yet a very vital theme, meticulously chosen to complete the foundation laid by our earlier yet sessions, strongly believing that the exploration will unlock avenues for recognizing and integrating alternative learning pathways that will ultimately enrich the educational ecosystem. At TED Fund, we believe in discussing ideas as well as implementing actionable strategies in line with our traditional unwavering commitment to action. The webinar is one of our efforts in this regard. We recognize that achieving these goals will require some collaborative effort, and in this support from all our stakeholders, many of whom are present here today. I'm particularly impressed that each time we hold these webinars, we attract a good number of experts, professional specialists, and key players in the sector. And we hope they'll also be able to cascade this beyond the immediate environment of the lecture. At this juncture, I want to extend my sincere gratitude, particularly to Professor Jegede for initiating these dialogues, and also all of you for participating very actively in previous and current versions of these engagements. Your collaboration is the fuel that propels us forward, and with the same spirit of togetherness, let us continue to build a Nigerian tertiary education system that empowers its students and faculties to navigate the digital world with confidence and competence. Let us foster a culture of innovation, inclusivity, and excellence, ultimately ensuring a brighter future for our nation and its citizens. There is no doubt that alternative delivery systems for education in our country and on our continent will assist in expanding access. It will improve quality, and it will enable us to reach even the underserved currently. I believe as we keep holding in dialogue, we will all become converts in the drive to improve the quality of education on the continent. So without further ado, let us engage in this crucial discussion and unlock the exciting potential of non-traditional learning experiences. I have no doubt that at the end of this, we'll all be grateful for the quality and the depth of the lecturer's presentation. So I thank you all as I look forward eagerly to the presentation. God bless you.
Thank you so much, our dearest Executive Secretary. You are a beacon of hope for digital literacy, not only in Nigeria, but in Africa. And we all recognize your implementation of innovative initiatives that promotes digital literacy, promotes skills building, and then of course to boost employability for the youth in Nigeria, especially in the tertiary education sector. We're grateful to you. Distinguished participants,
thank you very much.
Our pleasure, sir. Distinguished participants, it is time to take goodwill messages by some of our special guests. I call on Professor Ishaq Olarewaju Oloyede, the Registrar and Chief Executive Officer of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, Professor Oloyede or any of his representative, to please give his goodwill message. All righty. I would like to call on Professor Kabir Adeyemo. Professor Adeyemo is the Vice Chancellor of Lead City University, who is also the chairman of the Association of Vice Chancellors of Private Universities in Nigeria. Professor, I apologize, the host muted me in error. Professor Adeyemo speaks for over 150 private universities, both the licensed and soon to be licensed ones. Professor Adeyemo, can we kindly unmute?
Yeah. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Committee of Vice Chancellor of Private University in Nigeria, I send this good message. The Executive Secretary, TEL Fund, the Executive Secretary, National Board for Technical Education, the distinguished participants, stakeholders, and colleagues. Well, first of all, I have to congratulate TED Fund on hosting a webinar dedicated to digital literacy, productivity, and emerging skills. We are very proud of you, Executive Secretary, and we believe that private university in Nigeria too, we have a tremendous role to play. And I'm happy that my Vice Chancellor over there, Professor Francisca Oladipo, she has been doing very well. We are very proud of you. Well, your commitment to advancing knowledge in this area is commendable, and we undoubtedly empower individuals to thrive well in an increasing digital world. I wish all participants insightful discussions and valuable takeaway. We all know that digital literacy, productivity, and emerging skills are linked in today's rapidly evolving landscape. And digital literacy goes beyond basic computer skills, like the Executive Secretary Telfond has mentioned. It encompasses the ability to access, evaluate, and utilize digital information effectively in the realm of productivity, and it's a catalyst which enables individuals, organizations, and institutions to streamline workflows, collaborate seamlessly, and leverage technology to achieve more in less time. So I believe that this webinar is going to definitely play a tremendous role to all of us. And I wish all of us a happy and a rewarding webinar. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, my chair. Like I said, I know you speak for the close to 150 private universities in Nigeria, and we appreciate your support and hope that the discussions of today shall be carried forward to the CVC NU of private universities, and we shall implement some of the recommendations. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Next, we call on Professor Kelvin Chika Urama. Professor Urama is the Chief Economist and Vice President of the Economic Governance and Knowledge Management of the African Development Bank. Professor Urama. All right. While we wait for Professor Urama, we call on the Honorable Rep. Adedeji Stanley Olajide, the Chairman, House of Reps Committee on ICT and Cybercrimes. Host, I'll need your assistance in vetting and admitting. There is so much interest in this conversation, and we have a lot of people in the waiting room trying to join the meeting. Today's meeting is exceptional. Looking through the messages, we have participants from not just the academia, but I've seen somebody from the NTA, and we hope that they'll carry the conversations beyond the Zoom room to the larger audience on the work the TED Fund is doing through the committee in bridging the digital divide in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole. Dr. Olatunde Adekola is a senior education specialist of the World Bank Group. We invite him to give his goodwill message. Dr. Adekola, if you're in, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we hear you clearly.
Yeah, so let me join the Executive Secretary of TED Fund and of course all the participants to participate in this webinar. I want to say that my participation is to further emphasize the World Bank interest in the issue of digital literacy, productivity, and emerging skills in Nigeria, in our post-basic education institutions. I want to say that I want to congratulate the TED Fund because this type of gathering is long overdue, because to be able to move digital literacy and productivity forward in Africa, there's need for coalition. The coalition between the state actors and the non-state actors. The state actors, the relevant government ministries, departments, and agencies that are relevant to the issue of digital literacy and skills development. And of course, the non-governmental, the non-state actors, we all know them, and there are many associations that are also professional, technical association, non-governmental organizations. And of course, the development partners, which I represent in this type of meeting. So I'm very, very happy that I participating in this. I've been participating, but today to invite me to be one of the opening, to present an opening remarks. And the reason why there are two angles the World Bank look at the issue. The first one is how do we leverage on the issue of the digital space to reduce the education. So the other one is the one that many people who are here today who are post-basic education level, the higher education, the universities, the polytechnics, colleges of education. And we think about this in terms of how do we make sure that our teachers, our instructors are digital literate and ready to be able to have part in the life of our children, our students in tertiary institutions. So I want to say that we are looking forward to continuing to partner with government. We are very, very interested in this. And I want to appreciate my brother, Professor Jegede. We've been on and be talking and discussing this. And I'm very, very happy that this is moving forward. And also I want to thank Niron, who also invited me, and for all those who are here today. Looking forward to the presentation by our distinguished guest presenter, and we're looking forward to participate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Olatunde Adekola, for that inspiring goodwill message. For those who are just joining us, Dr. Adekola is a senior education specialist of the World Bank Group. Before I bring up our keynote speaker, we'd like to recognize specially the presence of the Director of Programs, the Nigerian Television Authority, Mr. Bin Ahmed. We warmly welcome you and the other members of the press, the civil society organizations, other members of the development partners, the academia, and every of our very special guests who welcome you. Briefly, I'll take the citation of our keynote speaker. Please, the host kindly assist in muting those who are not speaking. We have our keynote speaker, who is described briefly as a teacher, an educator, and a curriculum development expert. Thomas A. Soule. Thomas Soule serves as an associate director for learning evaluations at the American Council of Education, ACE. In this capacity, Thomas In this capacity, Thomas supervises the preparation, execution, and reporting of the ACE's validation of non-traditional learning experiences. The ACE learning evaluation helps learners document their skills and gain access to academic credits for formal training taken outside of the traditional colleges. ACE works with the military, government clients, general education providers, and the business world to evaluate military training, corporate courses, certificates, exams, and on-the-job training. The ACE also reviews are conducted by subject matter experts, faculty from colleges and universities who teach in related academic areas. And their review teams analyze materials, validate learning outcomes and competencies, and recommend post-secondary credits based on their findings. Before joining the ACE, Tom worked as a program manager of language instruction and curriculum development initiatives on behalf of several US government agencies. He has also taught, and that's why we described him as a teacher, at the secondary and post-secondary levels. Tom holds a master's degree in classical literature and educational leadership from Boston University and the George Washington University, respectively. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like us to welcome Tom Soule, known as Thomas Soule as well, to give his keynotes at today's third webinar. Tom, kindly share your screen.
I will do
as we
so.
eagerly listen to the conversation on the validation of non-traditional learning experiences.
All right. I hope that the presentation is now visible.
Yes, it's visible clearly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, then in that case, I will begin. And first of all, I'd like to say that I am indeed not just pleased, but honored to have been invited to such a gathering. There is obviously a large number of people in the audience, and so I'm very pleased to speak to an audience of such distinguished and learned people. So I'm coming to you this morning from Washington, D.C., where it is earlier in the morning. It's about 8:30 in the morning. So I am very pleased to be sharing the beginning of my workday with you. And I have a brief presentation to share with you about what we do at the American Council on Education in regards to non-traditional learning experiences. And so I shall begin. I have a couple of chief learning outcomes that I want to share with you, which is as follows. The first one, I just want to discuss in a general sense the benefits of credit for prior learning, which I will refer to pretty consistently as CPL, because that's how we usually term it here at the office, and the return on investment for learners, stakeholders, and institutions. And secondly, to identify the complexities and the holistic approach that we at the American Council on Education take towards the evaluation of credit for prior learning. However, it's a good time before I get too deep into the presentation to tell you who ACE is and what we do and a little bit of our history. The American Council on Education, which is often referred to just as either ACE or sometimes as ACE in the United States, is a nonprofit, non-governmental corporation that has been in existence for about 100 years. The genesis of ACE comes from post-World War I, actually, when there were a great number of veterans returning to the United States from the Great War, and then the government and civil society needed to come up with some approaches for how to better educate this great influx of people back into the workforce. And so that's where our history comes from. We have been doing evaluation of non-traditional learning experiences in various contexts for about 70 of those 100 or so years. And so these are the two things, as I mentioned, that I'd like for you to learn and take away from this keynote address, and let us continue. So I think with many concepts, it's important, just even though this is a distinguished gathering of education professionals, many of you, level set on the definition of how ACE uses the term credit for prior learning. We define it as is on the screen: the assessment and evaluation of one's prior learning and experience to make determinations about college level equivalency and to grant academic credit. That is how we at ACE formulated it in coordination with the Council on Higher Education Accreditation, CHIA, here in the United States a few years ago. So you will sometimes hear, depending on the preference of the speaker, you'll sometimes hear people refer to this as PLA, prior learning assessment, sometimes simply recognition of learning, experiential learning, or learning equivalencies. But we're all talking about the same thing. For the purposes of this presentation, I'll be using the term CPL, or credit for prior learning. It's important, this word equivalencies, because that's really what the core of what I'm going to talk to you about is: how does ACE look at a non-traditional learning experience and come to some sort of translatability into the tertiary education space. So this idea of equivalency, translatability is going to become very important in a moment. I won't read to you this statement because it basically sums up what I just said, which is a few years ago, you see the organizations listed on the top here, ACE included, developed a joint statement on the transfer and award of credit. And the first time really in that statement a few years ago, these organizations, which together represent a very significant proportion of higher education convening bodies in the United States, to stand and position that non-traditional learning, that is to say, learning that's taken place outside of a traditional classroom, to be awarded credit by registrars on the same basis as other types of learning experiences, such as, course transfer and credit awarding. But of course, that requires a careful validation of those learning experiences, and that's indeed why I want to talk to you about how we do that, because as you can imagine, the award of credit is a very serious matter for anybody at any registrar's office or organization, and one has to have confidence that the experience that one is granting credit for passes muster in terms of the breadth of content, the depth, the scope, the rigor of the assessment, and many other factors. And so this statement is just the beginning, and of course it has to be backed up by solid processes to ensure quality. And so some of the ways you see popping up on the screen, there are many ways to validate non-traditional learning experiences. Sometimes, if you start up in the upper right here, sometimes it's as simple as a challenge exam or a placement exam at a university. We think of this often in foreign languages, for example. If you can pass a certain exam at the departmental level, maybe you can get credit for X number of semesters of that language. Sometimes it's standardized exams. We have many kinds around the world. AP, CLEP, International Baccalaureate, many places, Cambridge International, many places do these things. Of course, ACE credit recommendations, which is my organization, and I'll get a little bit more into our standards today. Then other third-party recommendations. There are private organizations, other private organizations out there, including the NCCRS, which is the National Council on National College Credit Recommendation Service, I beg your pardon. And so there are many different ways, and what I'd like to talk to you today, and what is up in the left of your screen, is how we do it at ACE. All right, I shall move. All right. Before I get into that, some research here from a few years ago shows that with credit for prior learning, adult students complete their programs about 49% of the time in the United States. And without credit for prior learning, some that can go down to as low as 27%. And that's a result from a 72 institution study of prior learning assessment from CALE, the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning, and the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. So that study showed that there's a significant impact that when students and learners, whether they are of traditional university age or older in the workforce, have a distinct advantage because of the confidence boost, the financial advantage of bringing credit for prior learning. So increased likelihood of credential completion when granted credit for prior learning goes up, and institutions win too. I want to talk about that because I know we have several folks here who might be asking about return on investment. And the concern amongst institutions is often that if they accept credit from a prior learning experience or credit for prior learning, that they are essentially giving away tuition, particularly for a private university. And there's some research out there that shows that that's actually not the case, although it would be common sense to think that, that again, because of being able to take more advanced courses, if they get credit for more elementary courses, and also just the confidence that comes with entering with credit for prior learning having been validated, that institutions realize on average about 17 additional credits, not fewer credits, by adult students with credit for prior learning. So it really can be a win-win. So what does ACE do, and how can we be relevant to your meeting? Well, I think part of digital literacy and emerging skills is that a lot of people acquire some of their emerging skills, particularly in the digital realm, from things like on-the-job training or private certificate programs. Sometimes it's a training from their employer. It can really be from anything as long as it's a formal, graded, assessed experience. And so evaluating learning outcomes, the learning evaluation, certainly helps to empower people by validating their previous experience, even if it wasn't taken in a classroom seat. It unlocks that lifelong learning that people have gone through, and it improves economic mobility. So in terms of some of the stakeholders that I noticed on the list, from international development and banking and those sorts of audiences, we're really talking about taking people that might have become pessimistic about their skill set and its relevance in the workforce, and giving them a different path to go into tertiary education, or at least to have their previous experiences validated as being on par with a tertiary education experience. And again, of course, looking at the right-hand side of this slide, this has to be done with great caution so that we don't accidentally or inadvertently open the floodgates to experiences that are not rigorous enough to merit a post-secondary credit recommendation. So it's about processes, it's about the framework. We're looking at content, scope, rigor, breadth, and depth of the non-institutional learning. And I would add a note there that one of the things that we do at ACE in particular is that we focus very, very heavily on the assessments. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. And we do this by assembling ad hoc collegiate faculty to evaluate them. So in my role at ACE, for example, I do not evaluate, of course, subject matter specific course offerings or programs, but we gather distinguished faculty who do that, and my team and I act as a coordinating effort on that. Okay. All right, so if we look at learning evaluation providers, I mean, who do we who are some of the folks that we work with here, and to give you a sense in the United States anyway, some of the significant clients that come to us. You see that on the right here. Some really world-renowned companies, of course, IBM, Microsoft, T-Mobile, Google, Walt Disney. I mean, so these are definitely, Fortune 100 companies, many of them. But of course, we also have very many small providers as well, who bring their in-house education courses to us for credit recommendations. Somebody extremely famous like IBM. So IBM has a lot of internal training, both coursework, certificates, and even apprenticeships that they bring to us. And then we report out on this website below here, the National Guide, what our credit recommendations are for a given provider. And you can see we have a pretty good balance if you look on the upper left side of your screen. Government, professional associations, employers directly, alternative education providers like study.com and other places like that. And then up in the upper right of that pie, you see apprenticeships, which is one of our growth areas. We're seeing a lot of interest here from registered apprenticeships with our United States Department of Labor. So in terms of transferability to other national and regional educational ecosystems, I would point out that apprenticeships is something that we are seeing as a particular growth area in our business at ACE. And so you might want to keep that in the back of your mind, because I just, for example, did a review last year on window experts. And you wouldn't think at first glance that a window, although being a skillful thing, you wouldn't necessarily think at first that there would be a lot of tertiary education there. But when we dug into the program, we discovered the math, the science, the applied mathematics, and other things that were able to give credit recommendations in and give the learners a little boost if they were going into a post-secondary environment. So apprenticeship is definitely a growth area. That's partly driven by the cost of higher education here in the United States, which isn't as severe a problem in some other places, but is always a factor in higher education, particularly in private education. So you see here that we have a good spread of people who use this sort of service in the United States, and we're growing. Let me jump to the next screen. So in the U.S., we do have all 50 states that are represented here in our service, and we do actually have foreign participants as well. So you're not the earliest that I have to get up in the morning, because I have a presentation next week, even earlier than this, for an audience in Australia that's interested in this. So we are in all 50 states. We have over 1,000 institutions that are registered to in our national guide. 39% of them have not used our military guide. We also evaluate military training and education. 88% of our visitors, for those of you outside of the U.S. Audience, our GI Bill is in the United States is our military education government benefits, so that the veterans of the armed forces can then take advantage of government benefits for higher education. That's what the GI Bill does here. And so we also are fully interactive with the Joint Services transcript here in the United States for our military. So our services link directly to the education system of the United States Department of Defense. And again, as you think about a national and regional context for Nigeria, West Africa, and Africa as a whole, these are some ideas as you approach government stakeholders and private stakeholders and international development and things like this. Some ideas. So even though some of these are U.S. specific, I'm bringing them to you because it could plant some seeds, some ideas of people that you might want to liaise with in your country, whether it's in a labor department or in the Defense Department or any other place. All right, so when we get into our reviews, so let me start on the benefits here. They positively impact the lives of students and independent learners by contributing to their social and economic mobility. That's probably the most important thing, because we're talking about a slice of society. And I think this is equally applicable whether one is in the United States or Nigeria or any other place, who maybe think that the tertiary education is behind them, that it's no longer relevant to them, that they are either too old or far into their work life for it to be a relevant thing for them. And we find that validating the learning experiences and making recommendations really affects their ability to move on to their next job or to advance in the job they are. Also, of course, to provide a flexible, portable, and efficient transfer of credit. So that is what we do. This is kind of more how we do it. Faculty teams are composed of active college and of course, in the U.S. context, I'm saying college, but for our global audience, it would mean universities, colleges, polytechnics, etc. Actively teaching, they in the subject areas, and they have to have been teaching for a few years to be qualified to be a faculty evaluator. And we gather at least 2 or 3 faculty members per course so that there is consensus. You see here on the right that our faculty do come from accredited universities in the United States. All these acronyms up here are simply some of the accrediting bodies in the United States, Western, etc. But that's not terribly vital, which is what's important is more the graphic, which is saying we come from a diversity of regional and either state or regional accrediting organizations. You can see the acronyms below here: higher learning, middle states, etc. All that. And so we gather teams of faculty, and whether we do them virtually or not, whether there's an honorarium, and if there's travel, of course, we pay for travel. And we go ahead and take a look at these non-traditional learning experiences. So some of the things we do, we look at learning objectives, of course, first and foremost, both the terminal objectives and as well as any enabling objectives. Do these correspond to the sort of things that we see in tertiary education? What are the requirements for passing the course? In general, ACE has a 70% pass rate in order to make a credit recommendation. And we're also very critically looking at individual assessment, right? What is the proof of student learning? That's obviously exams, the rubrics by which those exams are assessed, papers, projects, skills demonstrations, presentations, case studies, all of the things that that we expect to see in a traditional college or university class. We need to see evidence of student learning, because that is essentially the receipt, as it were, that shows that the learning objectives have been met. If you think of the expectations as being a promise, the assessments are essentially the sales receipt, as it were, that those promises have been delivered. Evidence of the depth of the learning experience can be found in a number of places. Course planning documents, instructor tools, students' materials, learning environment. That learning environment can be either virtual or in person. I will tell you that here in the U.S., we've been doing mostly virtual learning validations in the past few years after COVID. We do occasionally have on-site, particularly with our military clients, but by and large, people are taking advantage of the cost efficiencies of virtual review. We're of course looking for alignment. Remember, I mentioned at the beginning that alignment was going to be a big word for us. We're looking for essentially, and one of the major questions that we ask is, is this course, or is the material in this course commonly taught in the tertiary environment here in the United States? And if so, at what level? Is it traditionally taught at the beginning of an undergraduate or baccalaureate experience? Towards the end? Is it a lower versus a higher division? Is it even potentially a postgraduate alignment? That's of course less common, but we do see it. So quality versus quantity. Of course, we are looking for the appropriate depth of rigor in any particular learning experience, and of course, the usability. What course equivalent could it be in a tertiary environment? And finally, we report out in our case with semester hours equivalents, and we specify a subject area. So the way that ACE reports out a credit recommendation. So let's say IBM has an internal course on, introduction to computer programming in the Python language, to take an example from tech. We might look at a place like that, look at that course, and say, okay, having spent several days looking at your materials with the faculty team, we can now say that we recommend 3 semester hours at the lower division baccalaureate in programming. And so we report out a number of credit hours based on the semester hour, and that can be, of course, formulated into any other system like quarters or trimesters or anything else. And then we also specify, we go ahead and validate these learning outcomes that we received at the beginning. So just to look back, we take those learning objectives. Have they been assessed? Are they at a depth that is appropriate for tertiary education? Is there alignment with post-secondary and tertiary education? And then if so, we express that in terms of the number of credit hours in a particular subject. We also have a transcript service, because one of the big things that we talk about is transferability. You see on the screen some examples. Again, for the U.S. military, we have we are fully plugged into their transcript service. But for private providers, we work with, we have an ACE working transcript, which is in cooperation with Credly, which is a badging service. And so since badges are such a hot topic these days, that provides the currency, so to speak, and the portability, because once a student has these badges, and you can see the little ACE endorsement on this badge here and here. Once they have that, that is essentially sort of an educational currency that they can take to a university registrar and say, dear registrar, my learning experience has been validated by the American Council of Education as being worth X number of credit hours. And then, of course, the registrar always has the sovereign decision within their own realm to accept it or not. But given ACE's long history with this, we are the principal player in that realm. Looking on to our call to action for higher education, we do want to promote and prioritize transfer credit and call it credit for prior learning. We work with institutions to help develop policies to put that into effect. We want to leverage new and emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence, to analyze large quantities of information, improve transparency, dedicate resources to quality advising, so that these learners can have the appropriate advocacy when they go to their registrars and universities. And then ultimately to partner to implement articulation agreements and structured pathways, because the best way to envision the credit for prior learning is if there's already a constructed path between the non-traditional learning experience and particular universities, so that a student can know, okay, well, if I complete this suite of courses at IBM, for example, that will equate at this university to this number of courses. That's more of a medium to longer term goal, and it's something that we're always working on. But it's definitely something that we have our eyes on. I'll give you some, I'll stop by, I'll finish with some resources here if you want to, and I'll send this to the coordinators as well, so that people can take a look at. acenet.edu, acenet.edu is going to be our main page, where you all about the American Council on Education, and then /resources is where you would go to take a look at it. And you can browse around some of the things that we do. And so I am mindful of the time, and so my stopwatch is coming just about time. So I will conclude by saying, how is this all relevant, to this audience and to this field in Africa and Nigeria specifically? I think that it's just an example of emerging skills being everywhere. Many people in our societies, whether it be the United States or Nigeria or West Africa or Africa writ large, are out there receiving valid and rigorous education that may not be captured and recognized, whether it be in the larger higher education ecosystem, or whether it's in government or business or development or anything like that. And I think that what we are discovering is that when you dig into these non-traditional learning experiences, it's like discovering a whole other aspect of people who have skills. It's like another dimension that you're uncovering of people who have skills that they've acquired from many places in their life, but that those skills haven't necessarily been recognized and dignified by a rigorous examination and a recognition of quality. And I think that's applicable worldwide, and certainly applicable in a place like Nigeria, which is not only a large country in its own right, but a regional leader and indeed a continent-wide leader in the higher education space. And so I do hope that this has planted some seeds for you to think about in your context and indeed our context, which since it's a global world. And so with that, I will say thank you, being mindful of the time. I know there'll be some time for questions coming up, but until that time, I should like to just thank you again very much for the invitation. It has indeed been an honor to represent the American Council on Education to you today. And I'm very pleased to, at the appropriate time when the coordinator
the ACE guide on the validation of non-traditional credits, and then of course pointing to the relevance to our own situation, because truly in the Nigerian system there has been a lot of conversation around the recognition and transfer of credits and from non-traditional learning system to the traditional tertiary education learning system. This is an exciting one, and I'm happy to open the floor to questions and discussions. We have about 5 minutes to do that. I would like to call on participants to kindly indicate by raising of hand if there are questions or contributions. Yes, please. Nick?
Thank you. My name is Nicholas Haber. I'm the chair of the Global Digital Literacy Council. I was had the honor of being the speaker last month, so it's great to be back here and hear from Tom. I just want to say that the ACE has been a great partner for the IC3 Digital Literacy Program and my colleagues' programs here at Certiport as well. And it's just a really great way to demonstrate the global accreditation of a program like IC3. It truly is a common currency that can be used for tertiary education and for jobs. And I think I discussed in my last presentation about how receiving that kind of accreditation not only can get you college credit in American universities, but it's being used by universities around the world to demonstrate the quality of the education that their students are getting. In addition, it's a signal to employers that are seeking to hire people that they have the right skills for the job. So congratulations to Dr. Naran for bringing in Tom Soule today. Thank you to the American Council on Education for being a great partner. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing, as Architect Sonny Ochono said, the actions that will take place to to drive upskilling of Nigerians and Africans going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. We're grateful for that. I would like to call on Professor Nura Dari from ABU Zaria. I'm calling as you appear on my screen.
Yes. Hello, thank you. I would like to congratulate the last presenter, and I'm calling from Ahmadu Bello University, and I'm one of those people who are currently engaged in the digitization of Ahmadu Bello University in the core north, northern Nigeria, so that we can revolutionize the system of education in northern Nigeria and then Nigeria at large. So what I expected to hear in the context of his presentation was the domiciliation of his presentation towards problems of digitization in specifically in Nigeria. You know, we have so many problems. I expect to hear something like problems of regarding the digitization, ranging from power, quality network, the systems too that can even move the training, and also the applications, which if you look at it from most universities, they have poor infrastructures, poor systems, and then even if there are systems, the systems are very, very local. But I appreciate the presenter and what he presented. I just wanted to add this from my own perspective, that these are some of the things that we are facing, and even the skilled manpower too, who are learned enough to deliver training like that. So, like as for me now, I've been conducting workshops on Microsoft 365, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Forms, Big Blue Button for online collaboration, and so on. This is just what I wanted to point out. If we'll hear more about those. Yes, sir.
Apologies, I have to interrupt you, Mr. Nura.
Thank you.
But
yes,
without prejudice to the keynote speaker, the topic of today's discourse is on the validation of non-traditional learning experiences, and is shared with us the best practices from the United States, the ACE guide, which has been applied in the US and globally. Today is not really a discussion about our problems, but actually to see what has worked concerning the validation, how, for example, the students you're training in the Microsoft office can actually convert that credits to CS 101 in Ogun State University once it is validated. Yes. Thank you. Yes, in the interest of time, I have AY Soule from FCE. I'm calling as you appear on my screen, AY Soule from FCE. Could you kindly unmute?
Thank you so much, Madam Francisca. And I know there is no much protocol that was established, but I just want to establish one from the top to the bottom, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm calling from FCT Gusau, Zamfara State, and I want to thank the speaker, all the speakers that have spoken. You've spoken very, very well. And for today's, today's topic touches virtually all what has been done in Nigeria. I appreciate what you've said from the perspective of what has been happening in the United States of America. And I want to just draw a bit of your attention towards what is already happening here in Nigeria and see what you will say with regards to the collaboration in it. In Nigeria, for instance, we have a platform referred to as the Terrace, which the chairman of TED Fund, Dr. Sonia Chono, is. The Terrace is expected to be like a backbone of all the tertiary institutions in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Already, a lot of work has been going on as far as this project is concerned. So I just want you to see how it's going to work in such a way that this current project will be able to shake hands with what we have in terms of Terrace, and the platform that we have right now, which is sponsored or handled by the Tertiary Education Trust Fund here in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I might just can I comment on that just ever so briefly? Which is one of the things that I think might be advantaged by in your country, in Nigeria, is that, you know, for those of you that are maybe familiar, in the United States, the Federal Department of Education is not nearly as powerful, shall we say, as it is in many other countries. And we have I know that Nigeria is also a federal system, but I know that in my country, the efforts at standardization and common platforms are a really huge challenge because of the diffuse nature of authorities, state, local, everything. So I do think that what you talk about, sir, actually has some promise, because probably by bringing some of these things to scale in Nigeria, you might be able to do it a bit more efficiently than we do because of this common platform that you're talking about. So you don't have to do something 100 times over rather than just doing it once in a common platform. So I appreciate your point.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. We'll just we still have some more questions. I apologize, we're a few minutes over the hour, but you all agree with me. It's been an interesting time. I'll call on Maruf Sani to quickly ask the question, to ask his question, or if it's a contribution.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. Just, I would like to know, thank you very much, Mr. Tom. Sorry, I work with National Center for Technology Management in Nigeria. I would like to know, please, Mr. Tom, what's your experience with regards to apprenticeship? You know, how were you able to work with them in order for them to be able to convert whatever experience they have to credit? Because this is one area I believe would be very relevant in Nigeria. I would like to know what's your experience in that regard. Thank you.
Yeah, our experience was that we were very surprised with how much interest we've had in apprenticeships. There appears to be a real hunger for a validation of this type of learning. One of the things to address your point most directly is that for an apprenticeship review, in addition to all the things that I talked about for other types of reviews, we also bring in industry experts. So we bring in practitioners because the nature of the apprenticeship is, of course, that it's very much an applied learning experience. So in the case of a apprenticeship, we bring in not just the academics, which we of course also bring, but we also bring in practitioners in the field so that we can get a balance of the theoretical and the applied skills that people are learning. And I can tell you that it's definitely something where our experience is that we were very surprised in a positive way at how much interest there has been out there for the apprenticeship product.
Thank you, Tom. We have the final hand up in the room. Oyedin Olalikon, I invite you to unmute and ask a question or present your contribution to the current discourse.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. I'm calling from Nigerian Army School of Finance and Administration. And thanks very much to the speaker, Mr. Thomas. He has really done a lot and justice to this particular section. But like our school now is a monotechnic, and of which we run two departments, Department of Accountancy and Department of OTM. We are under NBTE, that is the National Board of Technical Education. And we have gone for so many seminars of recent in which they are trying to collaborate with Cisco academics in order to upgrade the students when it comes to digitization policy. So I just want to ask, when it comes to Polytechnic, where MBT has been doing much in this aspect, so how can the ACE be able to partner with MBT in what they are doing concerning digitization policy and the school under the MBT. So I just want to know how they will be able to come in. Are they going to partner with the schools, or they are to partner with MBT so that the schools under the MBT will be able to benefit from it? Thank you.
Sure, yeah. The way the ACE works with institutions is normally on helping to formulate policy at institutional level. And or structured pathway. So if a particular institution wanted, or group of institutions is interested in a structured pathway, that's something that that is a way to partner with an institution, and then also at a policy level. So how to actually affect the acceptance of transfer credits on what criteria, things like that. So either of those tracks are the way that CE interacts with specific institutions. And we also do presentations to specific higher education institutions as well. So now that we have a contact together, I'd be pleased to receive any queries from anybody.
Thank you, Tom. For those asking about the recording or the PowerPoint presentation, you can be sure that we're going to be sending everything and much more. Finally, before I call for the vote of thanks, we have two hands up, and I really don't want to disenfranchise anyone. So here's what we do, Tom. We'll take the two of them together, and then you respond before we close the session. I'll ask Musumola Aguileye to kindly unmute.
Good afternoon, the presenters and the organizers of this program. I appreciate State Fund for giving us this opportunity again. But I want to suggest that most of us that are presenting, we have most of us that are participants, we have lectures around this time. For instance, I lecture at FCT College of Education, Zuba, Abuja, and I'm having a lecture. That was why I came late to the meeting. So if the organizers can help us in a way that maybe we shift it to sometimes like 5 to 6 or 6 to 7 in the evening. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma.
Thank you, ma'am. We shall take your suggestions, observations into consideration in scheduling our next webinar. Captain Babalola Ade Bowale. Kindly unmute, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, the organizers. I'm happy to be a partaker of this laudable presentation. I am of maritime background from Joe Marine Nautical Institute. And looking at the way we operate here, we have some that are professionally inclined. I think it will be better if the authorities can be able to look into that as well, whereby it's not necessarily to involve in the practicals. So it's a thing that we should embrace. We should embrace rather. Thank God that you have already addressed the one I wanted to ask for, which is the presentation. I want to thank you for that, if we could have that, and I wish everybody well. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Captain Babalola. I don't think there is anything for you to say there, Tom. Before I pass on the mic to Engineer Joseph Odo for the vote of thanks, I would like to recognize two people in the room. We have the Vice Chancellor of Miva Open University, Professor Tayo Arulogun, who has joined us. And then, of course, the chairman of the Committee of Directors of Academic Planning of the Nigerian University System, Kodapnu, Professor Bolanle Akinwande as well. This conversation is very germane, and if there are people that actually should be involved in this, it is the Vice Chancellors and the Directors of Academic Planning. So their presence is quite significant. I would like to invite Engineer Joseph Odo to give the vote of thanks and the announcements as well.
Thank you, distinguished participants. We are very grateful to Thomas Soule for his insightful presentation today. This has raised very important points that will help our regulators in admitting more courses that will translate to productivity in the future and also help the ecosystem. We remain very grateful to the Executive Secretary, Architect Sonny Echeno, for continuously innovating new areas and pathways that will bring improvements to our learning experience and also to the ecosystem. We thank Professor Jegede, the chairman of the Digital Literacy Committee. We thank Dr. Niran and other members of the committee for what they are doing with regards to this platform that we use to interact and widen our experience and also advise our regulators and ourselves on the way forward. We thank all the regulators and our bosses that are here today. We thank all attendees, and we hope to see you in the next webinar series, which will be the fourth for this journey we've started. You're all welcomed, and thank you very much. That will be
so much.
all for now.
Hello.
Thank you. I just have order.
Prof has something to say.
Professor Jegede, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to add my voice to what has been said in thanking everybody, particularly our keynote speaker of today. I think what he has presented is an eye-opener, and it's something that we believe the Nigerian education system, indeed the African education system, will latch on and use as when necessary. And in that regard, I need to mention that actually we have planned, and within the next 1 week, every participant, presenters, facilitators will get an e-badge from us. An e-badge is the latest development in the world for certification and recognition. So you get an e-badge as a facilitator, as a presenter, or as whatever, and that it ties in very neatly with the validation of a non-traditional learning experiences that we're talking about. So indeed, when you have this e-badge, and it can be shown that you made a presentation, and know that any university should be able to equate it to probably 1 credit unit of a course, or half a credit unit, or 2 credit units, anywhere in the world. That's the way things are going now. Nobody now presents physical certificates all around the world. The second thing I'd like to announce is that the presentation of today, everything that has been done today from the beginning to the end, will be sent to you in an ebook format. And so the slides of today's presentation will be there. Everything that the facilitator has said or read, the speech of the Executive Secretary of TED Fund will all be in the ebook. Within 1 week, I promise you that you get all these ones. Thank you very much, the facilitator. You've been wonderful as usual. And I only wish we could pay you forever. We don't even have money to pay you, but it'll be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So we do the final ritual of taking a photograph of all attendees. I would like to invite the attendees to kindly turn on their cameras. So I'll be doing that in 3, 2. If I don't see your camera, I assume you don't want us to see your faces. As much people as can should kindly turn off their cameras so we take the screenshots. So I'll do 1. Waiting.
Are you seeing us all?
I'm seeing everyone, but not everyone has their cameras on.
Okay.
Yes, for some. Can we turn on the cameras, please?
Your laughter will be captured in the picture.
Have you captured it?
The laughter, yes.
Doctor,
Can you turn on your cameras?
Yes, we are there,
we have
ma'am.
we have 8 pages, sir.
Yes.
Have you captured me?
We are waiting.
Have we done it?
Please, have I been captured too?
Yes.
Have
I been
no,
captured
I'm not
too?
seeing you.
Have I
You're
been
not
Please
captured?
check that you
What of
read.
me?
Have I been
captured?
Yes, have you captured me?
You captured me. Please, have I been captured? Yes, so you've been captured.
Likewise, me. What
Yes,
of me?
yes, by the digital kidnappers.
Have I been captured?
Have I been captured as well?
Okay,
Have I been captured?
By
Hello,
digital
have I been
kidnappers.
captured?
Yes, we got
I am confirming too.
Have I
I
been
get
captured?
okay
Have
now.
I been captured?
Yes.
Thank you.
We got everyone. Thank you all so much.
What about me? Have I been captured?
Have a good day. We look forward to the next.
Excuse me, have I been captured?
We got
I thought I had been
everyone.
captured.
Goodbye.
Yes, this is the first time I'm hearing people happy to be captured.
We sincerely appreciate everyone.
too, I'm waiting to be captured.
It was a rewarding experience too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Yes.
very much for joining.
Thank you, yes.
Most welcome. Yes.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you, sir. The ES2 has been
Thank
captured.
you very much.
Yes, too have been captured.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
sir. Bye.
Thank you.
Have I been captured? Yes, you have been captured.
Thank you
We have
very
not
much.
been captured.
All
Okay,
right,
that's
thank
good.
you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, captured.
Have I been captured?
It's a nice one.
So is the meeting
captured?
It's good.
You haven't been
Hope
captured.
I've been captured.
Thank you very much.
Have I been
Okay, thank you so much.
captured?
Oh,
I can't see myself.
Nobody is answering me, please. Nobody is answering me.
Yes, you've been captured. You've been captured. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you've been captured.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yes, he will. I will.
I've been captured. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, you've been captured. You've been captured.
Have I been captured?
Very well. Very well. Very well.
Have I been captured?
Have I been
I'm waiting for capturing.
Yes.
Have I been captured?
Yes.
Everyone has been captured.
I'm waiting for capturing.
Yeah, you have been captured.
I've not been captured.
You will. You have been captured.
Thank you.
Just
Thank
screenshot it.
you.
I didn't see myself. I'm not been captured. Yes, everybody has been captured. Screenshot. Just screenshot.
Okay.
What about me?
Everybody,
What
not been
about,
captured.
what about me?
You've been captured.
I'm not seeing myself being captured.
Yes.
No.
I've not seen myself being captured as well. You've been captured. Screenshot. Screenshot it. Don't worry. Just
Have I been captured?
yeah, you've been captured. You've been captured.
Have you captured me?
Yes, so thank
nice
you
one.
for your attendance. Thank you very much. We appreciate you all. Thank you. Bye bye. Enjoy the rest of the day. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye. Yes.
Yeah. Please, I did hear. Hello, sir.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Can you see my face?
Very well. I can see you.
Please.
I can see you. You've been captured.
God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm also here.
I'm not saying I can't. Make you don't go capture soldier.
I hope I've been captured. Mr. Ugo. Mr.
Okay,
Ugo,
bye-bye.
please. Mr. Ugo, I will see you next week, please.
Okay, Odo.
coming up again, right?
I see you next week.
No problem. No problem. No problem.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh,
Bye. Should not
you will
stop from being captured.
This is where.
Share with me too. That speech I want it. This is a very successful one.
This is. Hello,
Yes, and your deputy fund office, listen.
Yeah. Let me see.
Okay.